Assalamu alaikum, Maulana.
Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah Hasbullah.
Thank you for your time. I'd like to ask the first question concerning some of your books. Thomas Carlyle, the Scottish historian and writer, said in one of his letters that if history is to be told correctly, if history is told correctly, it becomes the grand poem of the time. So we feel when the war in Gaza happened, some of your books became the grand poems of our time because you took the right parts of history, the right moments of history, and you have already narrated these events. And amongst these books are Jerusalem, the Quran, Religion of Abraham and the State of Israel, explaining Israel's mysterious imperial agenda, and the Quran, the Great War in the West. So we would like you to give us some brief themes that you have covered in these books, which has made it very relevant for our times as events are unfolding, so people can be directed to the correct part of our history.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It is not possible for us to read and understand history, read and understand the movement of history, read and understand and recognize the end of history, unless and until we turn to absolute truth in the Quran and to He who was sent to teach the Quran. However, we have always reminded our audiences that the Quran has the status higher than the Hadith, and that the Quran, since it is absolute truth, must be allowed to sit in judgment over the Hadith. The big problem that exists between my model of scholarship and those who are my relentless critics is that they fail to recognize that the Quran can sit in judgment and must sit in judgment over the Hadith. And when a Hadith is in harmony with the Quran, we accept it. But when a Hadith is in conflict with the Quran, we do not accept it. These are people who do not accept that a Hadith can be in conflict with the Quran. They don't accept it. Having used that methodology, I have taken the Quran and the Hadith to study history, and I have realized that the movement of history is determined by the subject of the Messiah. So it is a messianic interpretation of history. And that is reflected in my book, the Quran, Jerusalem in the Quran, which was written more than 20-something years ago. From the Quran and the Hadith, not only did we get an understanding of the subject of Al-Masih al-Dajjal, and that he is the Jasad that Sulaiman alayhi salam saw in a vision, sitting on his throne, in consequence of which Sulaiman alayhi salam then made that dua, وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. He asked Allah, وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. He asked Allah that none should ever be able to inherit his kingdom, none, which meant the death bell for his income kingdom after he died. And that is precisely what happened. Holy Israel collapsed after he died. Why? The Jews don't know why Israel collapsed when he died. The Jews still do not know why Israel collapsed after he died. But we know that it is because he made this prayer, this dua to Allah, and Allah accepted his dua. And so we know that the Dajjal wants to rule the world from the throne of Sulaiman alayhi salam, and therefore from a state of Israel. And in our book, Jerusalem in the Quran, we have said that the logical deductions, don't ask me, where is the hadith? Go back home. I don't want to see your face. Don't ask me, where is the hadith? No, this is a logical deduction by people who think, and there are those who refuse to think, and history is leaving them behind now. That if Dajjal is to rule the world from Jerusalem, from the throne of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, number one, he has to bring the Jew, he has to liberate the Holy Land, which is under Muslim rule. He did that. While they are eating their roti canai and going to sleep, he did that. Number two, he has to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own. And Allah says that he will use Gog and Magog to do that. And Gog and Magog brought them back to the Holy Land. But our scholars will not accept that. So history is leaving them behind. They're being left behind by history. Gog and Magog brought them back to the Holy Land. Number three, that he has to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land, and he's already done that. And number four, that Israel has to become the ruling state in the world to replace Pax Americana. And we are now living through those days. Although I said this 20-something years ago, that analysis conducted in Jerusalem in the Quran has been validated by time. There's no need for me to edit anything. Nothing is wrong in it. And so I say, Alhamdulillah, that absolute truth in the Quran and in by he who is sent to teach the Quran has informed us and taught us history correctly.
Then my next questions in relation to that. In your Abraham book, which you wrote in 1997, that the recognition of the state of Israel cannot be separated with legitimizing the existence. Hence, it is an act of shirk. Can you explain more about it? Does this mean the two-state is not a solution?
The state of Israel, which now exists, is not holy Israel of Solomon and David, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, Nabi Dawood alayhi salam. If you extend political and diplomatic recognition to this state, you are accepting its bogus claim that it is the holy Israel of Solomon and of David. And this claim is false, it is bogus. And it is a claim which is in conflict with the truth. The truth is that the holy state of Israel, created by Nabi Sulaiman, by Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, and by Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, collapsed. Allah destroyed it after he died, after Sulaiman died. And it has never been restored. And he made a dua that none should inherit this kingdom after me. وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. and grant that none can inherit this kingdom after me, and that there could never be another kingdom like mine. To accept this state of Israel to be the state of Solomon and of David is an act of kufr, an act of kufr, of falsehood. It is also an act of shirk, because this state of Israel is claiming and in doing things in the Holy Land of Israel which are in manifest conflict with what Allah has ordained in the Torah, in the Gospel, and in the Quran. And the list is endless. And therefore this Israel is also committing shirk. In fact, it is the fountainhead of shirk in the modern age, particularly in the monetary system. And when you extend diplomatic recognition to Israel, as Egypt has done, as Morocco has done, as Bahrain has done, as Sudan has done, you have now joined in that shirk. And our people must reject what their governments have done. Otherwise, they also will be a part of the shirk.
Now, moving to your book, Methodology for Study of the Quran, you mentioned about certain examples of ayat mutashabihat, and one of it was the sacrifice of Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, mentioned in Surah As-Safat. Could you relate to us that interpretation, which
The
is
Quran has never said, that the child of the sacrifice was Nabi Ishaq. Never,
Never, yes.
never. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no shortage of vocabulary. If he wanted to say that the child of the sacrifice was Nabi Ishaq, or that the child of the sacrifice was Nabi Ismail, alayhim as-salam, he could have said so, but he never said so. It is in the hadith that you will find that the child of the sacrifice is Nabi Ismail alayhi salam. Okay? Now then, what I did say is that without identifying the child of the sacrifice, that when Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam had the vision, I say it's a vision, a dream which is a vision, and then he went to his son and he said to his son, surely I have seen myself sacrificing you in a dream, in my sleep, sorry. What is your response? My response to this is that Allah has never required human sacrifice in anything in the religion of Islam. And as a consequence, this cannot be understood as an ayah muhkama. When Ibrahim alayhi salam took the knife and was about to sacrifice his son, understanding the verse to be, the vision to be ayah muhkama, then Allah stopped him. Allah stopped him and said, Qad sadaqta ru'ya. You have already fulfilled the vision, even though you have not literally sacrificed your son, because this is not ayah muhkama, this is ayah mutashabihah. What Allah wanted from you was to accept in your heart the sacrifice of the seed of this son. And that sacrifice of the seed of the son, in my opinion, this is not what the Quran is saying, this is my view, is now taking place in the sacrifice of the Arabs. Yeah.
Okay, now concerning the three faces of Dajjal, I see that there is a great deception in history. I would like to call this the paradox of history, because when uh, Britain had established colonial rule over the world, in 1823, America's Monroe Doctrine sought to free themselves, free the American nation from British colonial power, and from there started the transition from Pax Britannica to Pax Americana. But the paradox is Britain supported it while it was against Britain. America's effort was against Britain because America defied the colonial establishment. In the same way, now the paradox is in this liberal order that America had established from Second World War onwards, Israel is defying America, and yet America is supporting Israel to dismantle the liberal world order and facilitate the transition to a Pax Judaica. What do you think of this view, Maulana? What do you think, is this accurate? Could we say that this paradox is a great deception, and yet all of this is working in line with Dajjal's grand strategy?
You are correct. Every footprint of Dajjal is embedded in deception. Everyone, not just those footprints to which you have directed attention. Every footprint of Dajjal is embedded in deception. And so the movement from Pax Britannica to Pax Americana had to have deception involved in it. And as a consequence, the movement from Pax Americana to Pax Judaica also involves deception. But parallel to what Dajjal is doing is what Allah is doing. And they plan their plans, and I plan my plans, and I am the best to plan. Wallahu khairul makirin. And so while we are able to recognize the deceptions involved in the movement of history from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, it is also possible for us to recognize absolute truth all through the movement of history, and absolute truth eventually triumphing, being triumphant over falsehood, as Israel is being taken to its destruction. Those who have eyes with which to see would be able to recognize the ultimate deception. That while it appears as though these are people who are supporting Israel, helping Israel, arming Israel, transferring technology to Israel, defending Israel in the Security Council again and again. In fact, what they are doing is taking Israel to her total and complete and ultimate destruction. This is the ultimate deception. But we would only recognize that if we're able to penetrate beyond the deception of Dajjal to reach the truth, absolute truth in the Quran.
This is like the eschatological reality behind the appearance of political events.
That's right, the eschatology which comes from the Quran
From the Quran.
and from He who is sent to teach the Quran. That is Catholicism.
Okay, thank you, sir. My next question would be about Imam Mahdi. In one of your lectures, if I'm not mistaken, you said he will emerge after the emergence of Ad-Dajjal. So, using the timeline given in the Hadith, it means that after Malhama and the conquest of Constantinople, where maybe many of us most likely will not be in this world anymore. So, what should we do to prepare for the coming of the Mahdi? Should we prepare ourselves in building some kind of a Khilafah infrastructure in advance now?
Well, your question is not one, it's two.
Okay.
Number one, you appear not to have questioned, but maybe implicitly you are questioning my view that Allah will not send the Imam al-Mahdi until and unless Dajjal
Yes,
has
it's come.
completed
Yes.
his mission. And he will not complete his mission until he stands up in Jerusalem and declares publicly,
I am.
Ana al-Masih, I am the Messiah. I am not aware of any other scholar who holds this view. And since I give this view on the basis of my interpretation of events, it can be correct, it can be wrong, only Allah knows the truth. If it is correct, then it becomes truth and it will survive. But if I have made a mistake, then tomorrow this will be forgotten. So yes, I continue to hold the view which I've expressed for the last 20 years or more, that it is only after Dajjal has completed his mission, then and only then will Allah send the Imam al-Mahdi, and then after he sends the Imam al-Mahdi, then and only then would Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the Prophet Jesus, the son of Mary, would return. The second part of your question pertains to how do we prepare for the Imam al-Mahdi. Answer, the way to prepare is to ensure that we are not deceived by a false Mahdi. That's the first preparation. It is almost certain that the CIA and the Israeli Mossad, together with their satraps in Saudi, in Qatar, in Turkey, would have plans to have a false Mahdi groomed to present him as the true Mahdi. And all the sheep and the cattle and the goats and the camels who do not learn to think, who have no capacity to think and no insight, no basar, will all be deceived and accept him as the Mahdi in the same way that all these sheep and cattle were deceived, and when the governments and the World Health Organization said, stand 3 feet apart, even in your salat, like a bunch of monkeys. They all stood 3 feet apart. I don't care 2 peanuts if they are annoyed with me. But there are those who now recognize that they were deceived. And now they are convinced they were deceived, and they've made tawbah, and they will try to ensure they do not repeat the mistake. These are not sheep and cattle and goats and camels. Those who insist, no, we did the right thing, and when COVID comes back, we'll again do the same thing. These are the sheep and the cattle. And so when the Mahdi, who is being groomed now, when he makes his appearance, like the false Khalifa appeared with the ISIS, Abu Bakr, they will all accept him as the Mahdi. to prepare ourselves for the Mahdi, number one, make sure we are not deceived by a false Mahdi. Number two, the implication of the Mahdi declaring himself, I am the Mahdi, and then accepting the bay'ah at the Kaaba, is that he will then lead an army. He will then lead an army. And there are two hadiths concerning that army. That even if you have to crawl over ice, go and join that army. So this is a preparation for the young men of this ummah, not for the women and not for the elderlies. That when that time comes and that army is marching, you must, under the leadership of the Mahdi, you must be prepared to leave wherever you are and to defy every government that stands in your way, defy every military force that stands in your way, and go and join that army.
Thank you. And other than the events preceding it, shall we also look for him using physical descriptions?
There is a physical description of the Mahdi in the hadith, which is very well known. But when he himself declares, I am the Mahdi, only then do we have to check him out.
Okay.
And the way to check him out to see whether or not he is indeed the true Mahdi involves more than the rational faculty. It involves being able to see with the nur of Allah.
Maulana, the study of Akhir Zaman is understood by general people or people who do not like these subjects to be taught as bad news. Akhir Zaman just for them means bad news or something alarming or just predicting wrong things to happen. But in parallel, there's a lot of good news in the study of Akhir Zaman. As we see, Constantinople will be conquered, the descent of Isa alayhi salam, which requires the uprising and uniting of the Muslim Ummah, while events continue to happen appearing to destroy the Muslim Ummah. But in parallel, there's also this good news of the coming together of the Ummah in defiance of oppression and spreading truth. So could you also tell us about what other good news that the study of Akhir Zaman would give us?
When you study Akhir Zaman and you're able to recognize the deceptions that has come from Dajjal and from Shaitan to try to obstruct us and to try to corrupt us, we are able to then, when we recognize what they have done, to make efforts to correct ourselves. One of the first things that we will correct ourselves with is to turn away from the bogus way of reciting the Quran daily, to khatam the Quran every lunar month. When you recognize that the present system is bogus, and you turn to the correct system, which I have explained in my book, The Quran and the Moon, then your joy will be endless. You will never, never stop thanking Allah for having come to this path in which you recite the Quran with correct ajza. This is then, number one, the joy that comes. As you recite the Quran with correct ajza, you then begin to live with the moon. And as you live with the moon, your heart begins to beat in harmony with the rest of Allah's creation. You now live a happier life, even if you're only eating roti canai and drinking teh tarik or onions and roti or pork. Yet you sleep happily, you live happily, you live with sukoon, and that is a joy in heart. Number three, when you recite the Quran as it ought to be recited, then the Quran protects you from the evils of the godless world.
That, my,
Yes. You have one more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Mullah, it's getting hot.
Yeah, okay. All right.
one,
One more.
one
Okay.
more, please. Last one.
One more.
One more.
Yeah, you.
This is like please give the young Muslims advice, who the young Muslims who are eager to learn the Deen, especially for them to first recognize, understand, and then face the fitan today correctly.
Number one, don't delay in getting married, because zina destroys you. Having a woman in secret makes you a rat. Only rats like the dark, but men like the sunshine. So if you have a woman, bring her in the sunshine so people can see her and she can live with respect. Don't do anything in the dark. But this is an age in which there's public nakedness. And women have become the children of Dajjal, and they're throwing themselves. It's an age of the sexual revolution in which sex is as free as the sunshine. So how can the young people protect themselves? How can you remain a virgin until the day that you're married, when they say being a virgin is foolishness? Only a fool will remain a virgin. So our advice to the young people is to protect yourselves from zina, because zina will destroy whatever nur you have in your heart, and you will live with internal darkness. Internal darkness. And if you are internally dark, no light inside, then you can't see with the internal eye. There's no basar. So you have to get married in order to protect yourself. Tomorrow you'll hardly be able to find anyone who is a virgin, and yet at the time of marriage, the first marriage. Secondly, when you get married, then you must try as best as you can to live with your wife in accordance with the law which has come down from Allah. And if you find that your wife or your husband is going on another road, and whatever you do, you cannot bring them to live on this road, the path of Allah, then part from that wife, part from that husband, even if they are children. Put your trust in Allah to protect the children. But do not remain in that marriage, because you'll do harm to yourself and also to your children. And finally, our Prophet has prophesied that in Akhir Zaman, one man will have to maintain 50 women. And we are already seeing evidence that this is coming to pass. So if you have the means and you can maintain more than one wife, say, I don't care 2 peanuts for public opinion. Public opinion says good men have only one wife. And we say, take that public opinion and throw it in the garbage bin. That's the way you have to talk, to blast that godless world. Shake them up. We don't care for your opinions. So if you have the means, then take a second wife. Marry up to 4 if you have the means. In order to help our sisters who do not have husbands and who need to get a husband not only for food and clothing and shelter, but if a young woman does not have a husband to fulfill her needs, she can either go crazy or go on the path of shaitan. Okay?
Thank you, Maulana.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Sir.